This is Plant-Based Briefing. Plant-based diets could slash sleep apnea risk by up to 29%, study finds, by Courtney Davison at forksoverknives.com. I'm Marian Erickson, your host, and this is the Plant-Based Podcast where I find a variety of articles on plant-based and vegan living, get permission, and read them to you here in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. So now let's get to today's Plant-Based Briefing. Plant-based diets could slash sleep apnea risk by up to 29%, study finds, by Courtney Davison at forksoverknives.com. A healthy plant-based diet may be an effective tool for combating obstructive sleep apnea, significantly lowering the risk of the disorder and relieving symptoms for those who already have it, new research suggests. In a study published February 2024 in ERJ Open Research, researchers analyzed data from more than 14,000 people to evaluate whether the amount of plant-based foods versus animal-based foods in one's diet could influence the risk of developing obstructive sleep apnea, OSA, a disorder in which the upper airway becomes partially or completely blocked during sleep. Left untreated, OSA can cause chronic sleep deprivation and raise the risk of heart disease, irregular heart rhythms, type 2 diabetes, and other conditions. For the study, researchers used data from the National Health and Nutrition Survey, a long-term project that collects diet and health information from participants on an ongoing basis. The researchers scored each participant's diet based on their reported intake of healthy plant-based foods, unhealthy plant-based foods, and animal-based foods. To isolate the impact of diet quality, the analysis adjusted for factors such as age, calorie intake, tobacco and alcohol use, and the presence of cardiovascular disease, cancer, and diabetes. The findings. The study found that participants who ate more healthy plant-based foods and more plant-based foods in general were 17% and 19% less likely to develop sleep apnea, respectively, compared with participants who ate fewer of these foods. The biggest difference was seen among male participants. Men whose diets were the most plant-based were 29% less likely to develop sleep apnea than those who ate the least plant-based. While plant-based diets overall were associated with decreased sleep apnea risks, participants who reported eating the highest amounts of unhealthy plant-based foods saw a 22% increase in risk. In considering what might explain these trends, the study authors point out that low-fat, high-fiber plant-based diets have been linked to lower rates of obesity and inflammation. Excess body weight can increase pressure on upper airways, and obesity is a prime risk factor for obstructive sleep apnea. It's estimated that 70% of people diagnosed with the condition are obese, and that 40% of obese people have sleep apnea. Asked why the healthy plant-based diet appeared to confer slightly less benefit than the general plant-based diet, study author Johan Adamamalaku, PhD, said the modest difference might be attributed to several factors. It's possible that the broader variety of foods in a general plant-based diet offers a wider range of nutrients and phytochemicals, which may contribute to this effect, said Malaku. Additionally, the way healthy is defined in the HDPI or Healthy Plant-Based Diet Index might exclude certain plant foods that have beneficial properties for reducing sleep apnea risk. Notably, all of the plant-based foods deemed unhealthy were ultra-processed foods except for one, potatoes. Because of their starch content, the HDPI lumps potatoes in with refined grains, but recent research is challenging that designation. Plant-based diets for sleep apnea, mounting evidence. The study adds to a growing body of evidence that a healthy plant-based diet may not only reduce the risk of developing sleep apnea, but also help relieve symptoms in those who already have the disorder. In a small interventional study published last year, linked here, 14 patients with OSA switched from a standard American diet to a whole food plant-based diet for 3 weeks. At the end of the study, participants reported reductions in sleepiness that were comparable to those seen with the use of stimulant medications commonly prescribed for OSA. The study authors speculated that this may be because whole food plant-based diets are very low in saturated fat, which is abundant in the standard American diet and has been associated with daytime sleepiness. A 2021 study linked here of more than 9,000 participants found that people who reported eating fruit at least once a day were 26% less likely to suffer from OSA than those who reported eating fruit just 3 times or less a week. This was after adjusting for body mass index and other confounding variables. A review linked here, published earlier this month, looked at available research on plant-rich diets and sleep and concluded that plant-rich diets characterized by their higher fiber content, melatonin precursors, isoflavones, and positive effects on the gut microbiome hold promise in improving sleep quality and addressing sleep-related disorders, including OSA and obesity-associated sleep disturbances. It's estimated that 30 million Americans have OSA, but only 6 million have been officially diagnosed. People suffering from OSA typically wake up multiple times every hour throughout the night, but they're roused so briefly that they often have no recollection of it later on. Snoring and daytime sleepiness are hallmarks of the disorder, though some people will experience no noticeable symptoms. OSA is most often diagnosed through polysomnography or a sleep study. You just listened to Plant-Based Diets Could Slash Sleep Apnea Risk by Up to 29%, Study Finds, by Courtney Davison at forksoverknives.com, and I'm your host, Marian Erickson. And if you're interested in some other episodes talking about sleep apnea, here's a couple that I'll link in the show notes. 725, I went plant-based, said goodbye to 100 pounds, pre-diabetes, and my CPAP machine. And 531, from being denied life insurance to losing 160 pounds and founding a plant-based telehealth organization. So please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.